Okay, welcome to the PHx Fashion Conversations, again presented by the PHx Fashion Conference Group. Today, we will talk to Monday Off to discuss their thoughts on what the brand guide for the new normal would look like. Monday Off is a consultancy and media company based in Manila. We will be joined by Paulo Reyes, Bryan Sochayseng, and Lex Celera as they take us through case insights on how brands are communicating and connecting to their community in new ways. Let's bring in Paulo, Bryan, and Lex, the Monday Off on screen.
What's up, my dudes?
Hey guys.
Hey.
Oh, hello.
Let's turn on your video there. Thanks, Esme.
Are you driving,
Esme.
Bryan?
Esme, are you still there?
Sorry, guys.
Hi, guys.
Hey, thanks for the intro. So do we just start?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right then. Hey everyone, thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks for tuning in.
As if you guys had any other choice. You guys are stuck at home just like us. But so yeah, we're gonna introduce what our thoughts are on a brand guide for the new normal. So I'm not sure who's in this room. It could be people who own brands, people who want to start a brand, people who handle multi-brands, but we hope that we'll be able to provide some sort of value. I mean, we really hope so. So a little bit about us. We're Monday Off. We are a creative consultancy and a publication company based in Manila. The work we do is mostly in retail and in fashion. So we help brands to get where they want to be through content, strategy, and creative direction. We also have a podcast. It's a general interest podcast on Spotify. Monday Off Radio is where we discuss high-level cultural commentary. We interview guests, talk about badots, make fun of the bullies in high school, and this is where we also talk about our feelings.
Yep.
I'd like to introduce the team. So first off, we have Bryan. Bryan is a creative director. He's a graphic designer. He's an object maker, illustrator, stylist, and art director. So everything visual is Bryan. He also owns an independent clothing brand, which he runs with his wife. Lex naman doesn't have a wife. He's a writer, editor, and a content manager with more than 5 years of combined experience in publishing. So
I think he does have a wife.
For some of you who don't,
Quiet.
who know Lex, you might have met him through Scout or as a writer in Vice Asia. I am Paulo. I'm a marketing manager and a creative consultant. And yeah, so I basically help the team and I run the team. Just a little bit about us. We started off as friends. We met in various circles and communities. So for a couple of jobs, we were brought in to kind of do together. And after working together a couple of times, we just felt that it was the right thing to do. So after, it's been, I think, 2 years since we've been working together. We're not friends anymore, but we kind of just stick together to, get paid. So yeah, that's us. Enough about us. We're gonna talk about what we think a brand guide for the new normal would look like. So as you all know, when Miss Rona graced us with her presence, everything changed.
Miss Rona.
It should go without saying that the way brands communicate, connect, and build their community cannot be like the way it was before. So, with everything changes, the way brands would communicate and connect and build their community has to change as well. So in the next hour or so, we hope to share some insights we've gathered that might help guide your brand through the shitstorm we know as this new normal. So when the lockdown happened, as you could remember, there was a lot of discussion as to what products are essential and what products are non-essential. So us, in the fashion industry, when your products are suddenly deemed non-essential, what happens to your brand? What happens when your brand? What happens to your brand when your products can't move? So we were discussing a little bit about this, and I think it was Lex that kind of threw the question, and he started asking, so does that make the brand the ultimate essential? In the first few months of the pandemic, we saw two things that brands were doing, because nobody really knew how long this was going to last. Some people decided to wait it out and let it pass, thinking that everything would go back to normal. Where are those brands? Who knows where they are now? But many businesses were very scrappy and they were able to pivot and adjust. But one thing is clear in almost any industry, what you do in a crisis like this will set you up for what happens after. So Lex is going to run us through a couple of things that we've noticed happened to brands during the pandemic.
Yeah, so before we actually jump into like the actual brand guide, I think it's also necessarily to discuss where we're coming from, like the actual framework of what we're discussing. And the very first thing, like let's just mention the obvious thing. The retail landscape really has changed. In the past few months, we've seen headlines from brands, both big and small, who were affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. So we have big brands like Gap, J. Crew, Brooks Brothers, even multi-brand retailers like Need Supply and Toto Kalo. They've been forced to file for bankruptcy, or even worse, just completely shut down. But one of the unifying thing with all the brands that I mentioned is that they already had some pre-existing problems even before the pandemic. So for Need Supply and Toto Kalo, they were cash strapped. They had some operational problems. They already had layoffs even before the pandemic. And with J. Crew in particular, I feel like, and Pao, feel free to jump in on this. I feel like they just failed to adapt to like the current market.
Yeah, they've been making the same gingham shirts for like the past years, and nothing's changed.
Gingham talaga yan.
So basically, the pandemic didn't give or didn't shake the industry in a 180 degree. It's more of an acceleration of where the industry is supposed to go, I'm guessing. So things like moving into e-commerce, espousing like the digital space, or even for fashion houses, something like seasonless releases. These are some of the moves that brands we feel like should have done even before the pandemic, which could have mitigated the struggles that they have now. Next slide, please. So even from like the consumer's end, it's been this weird, confusing shuffle. Like things have really changed dramatically. So one example that we see is people buying more home furniture, more houseplants, and even maybe art. It's more of like the reason why or how consumption has changed because value has changed. Like for me personally, I bought houseplants, I bought a new desk, but I wouldn't have thought of that or even consider it as like something that I would purchase before the pandemic.
So if
more
it
than
wasn't for the pandemic, you wouldn't have a desk right now.
honestly,
If it
yeah.
wasn't for the pandemic, you wouldn't have become a grown boy.
Yeah. So more than looking to make our homes look good, the bigger change is an effect of what I'd like to think as consumer anxiety. So this story or by this feature by WWD, they outlined consumer anxiety into different consumer segments. So there are some people who are looking for anything that correlates directly to their health. There are some people who are looking for affordability. There's some people who are also considering like the bigger scope of things like the environment and the planet and all that. And there are some people who are thinking about their own personal experience. Case in point, people who are every week waiting for their Shopee delivery to just get there. And I feel like Pao, we talked about this before. I feel like it hits different when you just receive the Shopee delivery compared to us going to an actual store and going out with the bags.
Yeah, shopping's a little weird these days, and I think I tweeted it out a couple of days ago. Like receiving a package does not hit as good as it used to before, because before when you receive a package, it's like, oh, you're excited because you bought something from online, or there's a John that's coming in. But it's almost as if like when the pandemic happened, like we were receiving groceries at the house, we were receiving bread, we were receiving alcohol from the stuff we had to order online. And then this one time I ordered, I think I ordered some shorts, and I was so excited for it to come in the mail. And then when the Shopee guy came over, he's just like, "Ito na po, kunin niyo na." And I'm like, all right, thank you. You had to get like your picture taken by and all that.
You didn't get the serotonin kick.
No, the serotonin did not hit. But I think that's also a matter of, you're right, like value has changed a little bit.
Everyone's just thinking of in their minds, they're just like it's an unboxing video on YouTube. Ito na po, bago kong mga upuan.
That's the only pleasure that they get it from, aside from the actual product.
Yep.
I think the reason why value has changed, it's rooted in, I don't want to call it a trend. It's more of this wave of anti-consumerism and really considering like the value for money. Like right now, a lot of people have also been affected by the pandemic when it comes to their purchasing power. So it also leads to not just them thinking about what they're going to buy in the future, but also what they already currently have. So all these ideas of materialism, overconsumption, and maybe even irresponsible business practices boil down or trickle down to the industry at large. Next slide, please. And it just goes to show that um, in this weird change of power dynamic, like retailers, wholesalers, even media outlets, they don't want to admit that customers have really been in charge. And when we say in charge, it's in charge of the value of the actual products and the services that they put out. Right now in the media, there's been a very cool wave of, I would like to say, democratization of information. So we have platforms like Diet Prada, which are very into like the current gossip or current issues surrounding the fashion industry. But one thing that I want to point out are the existence of these archive accounts. So basically, they're accounts on Instagram that primarily just post moods. So it can be anything from a pair of beaten up New Balance sneakers to maybe like an archive item from Stone Island. And these brands or these accounts, um, aside from sharing mood boards, they've actually influenced some of the people that we might not expect. Like, for example, there's this account called at hidden.ny, and it's a mood board. It's one of these archive accounts. And the people behind the account, they've actually worked with people like Drake and people like Pharrell, not just for helping them curate their own mood boards, but in their actual outfits. So I think one thing is clear. It's time for brands to pay attention to what their customers are saying because of this equal footing when it comes to the power dynamic. And the customer today, they're really so discriminating. They want a brand that represents their own values. And I think one way that we could start it is just by thinking about how we communicate. Yeah, could you jump to the next slide? So we found this study done by Heisnobiety. It's this culture, streetwear adjacent or streetwear particular kind of platform. And they had this white paper with Boston Consultancy Group, and they came up with this study that basically says 89% of their audience, when we say their audience, I took a look into it, it's like 2,000 respondents, different ages spanning across 16 to 55. And then they all basically said that they want to hear from fashion brands, even during a public crisis, such as the COVID-19 pandemic. So there is a necessity towards having this voice. Next slide. Brands need to capture audiences, not consumers. I think what we're saying here, not everything has to be a transactional relationship between brands and customers.
Yep.
I think the idea of a brand as a living, breathing organism has never been so true until now, where we're holding brands to the same standards that we hold our friends. Like, brands don't exist in a vacuum. I think if we change that kind of perspective where brands are and giving brands that voice, we open ourselves to dialogue with the environment we're in. And there's this quote by Hisnobaiti as well. Brands that are successful in this new environment don't simply respond to trends or outside narratives. Instead, they become true drivers of culture, which means they're culturally credible in their own right. One thing that I really hate is when brands try to be hard sell. I feel like anything hard sell doesn't really resonate now. I've seen this ad, like, we've all seen the ads on Facebook that aren't just tacky. They don't, you remember them since they're so annoying. And I feel like it's something, I don't want to give them the benefit of the doubt that they're smart enough to make that intentional. Have you
Who's
seen any
this?
of those ads? Like,
Sino to,
Who's
sino
this?
to, Lex?
Who's this? Who's this?
no, I don't even know
Oh,
the brand. It's not a big brand. It's not a good brand.
yeah, I think I get you though. Like, you don't even feel like they're just coming out of nowhere. They're advertising a product that's like, you know, like it's super hard sell. You don't really get like anything from it in terms
Yeah,
of what the brand's saying. It's
yeah.
more of just like, here's our here's our stuff, so buy it.
It's like a billboard that you
It's
put on a
empty.
Facebook ad.
Yeah.
Like it's just straight to product or service. But I think we have some examples of brands that I think are doing it right. So there's just one example. It's Saturdays NYC. It's a New York-based uh, menswear brand or retailer, and then they're international. They have stores in Japan and Australia. But one thing that I noticed is that they had this change in content strategy. So when I say content strategy, it's basically their Instagram feed. I noticed that they decided to go kind of hyper local. So if you see the slide, they have all these posts like where's the best place to find inner peace, where's the best burger in New York, and then they collated the best responses or the most popular responses, and then they put it out. And the thing about that, it has nothing to do with their products, but I feel like it has everything to do with who they are as a brand. Like they tried to communicate by not just asking fun questions, but by actively opening dialogue with their followers. And one might think like it's just another strategy for them to, create user-generated content. Let's say they have a quota every month that they have n number of like posts to post. But I feel like it's a sincere, like it's coming from a very sincere place, and I find it very endearing.
There you go. It
There's
already
this other
worked on
brand.
you.
Yeah, you're a sucker for brands, pala.
No, when they posted like the sunset in New York and just talking about how they miss the store. Wala
You
lang.
Kinilig
felt
ka.
something. It hit.
Kinilig.
Yeah, dude, I haven't even been to their store. Yeah, so there's this other brand, Noah. It's also from New York. They're like a menswear brand, and it's founded and headed by the former creative directors of Supreme. It's Brendan Babenzian. And then media outlets and them themselves, they like to position themselves as this radical, environmentally conscious brand. And for some brands, that might weigh too heavy on their own branding. Like, is it too much? But for them, they really espouse it, especially with their recent efforts. So they made headlines like last year. They decided to close down during Black Friday, which means in the United States, all these other retailers and wholesalers are on sale, like almost 70%, like that's normal. And they also actively said like you should buy less stuff from us. And they've also said like we are not a sustainable brand since they want to position themselves as an environmentally conscious brand. This fact of being meta about it or being conscious about it, it's not something that people can discuss like in the boardroom. Like, is this the way that we're gonna go? It just felt probably natural to the founder himself. Pao, you mentioned something earlier, like something about transparency.
Yeah. So while we were running through and I was looking through Lex's outline, I remembered that um, Noah actually puts out this blog called Breaking Down the Cost. And Noah's products aren't cheap, like they source their wool from places around the world. And what they've done is they were super, super transparent about um, what they like or how much goes into their cost and how much their clothes actually cost. And it's not like the first time a brand has done this, but this like Noah's just been super loud about it. They break down the cost from how much the fabric cost per unit and how much labor costs per unit, so you can kind of like track and see where that money is going. And for some reason, like, yeah, it's expensive, but when you look at how the cost is broken down, and they even have a part in the breakdown that says like, oh, this is what we earn. They're very transparent to a point where they show you what you earn. Like, it makes you actually want to buy and say, you know what, here, take my money. But not all brands can do this. And for a brand to be able to communicate effectively, we feel like a brand must really know itself. So when the pandemic happened, we noticed that brands started being more vocal about what they stood for. Suddenly, like, a lot of brands were standing up for Black lives. A lot of brands were suddenly helping their community. And it's good, right? Like, it's good that brands
Yeah.
are starting to do this, but for other brands that just kind of followed, it really felt like their efforts fell short. And frankly, it kind of felt fake because they only started to do that now that everyone's doing it.
Came out of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not gonna mention names, but the ones who have been doing it before and the ones who just continued that narrative for their brands because this is just who they are. Like that was the brands. Those were the brands that actually gave impact. And some case studies here would be Nike, for example. Their Play Inside, Play for the World campaign was easily one of my personal favorites. When stores locked down, people weren't earning as much as they used to. Sales might have slowed down for Nike, but Nike's ability to bring out the athlete in everyone did not stop, even if sales stopped and when the crisis happened. Even with that gorgeous ad that was released the other day, I think that was yesterday, they made do with archive footage and user-generated content sent over by the community to produce the campaign. And like, as I studied it further, a campaign this simple and impactful was only possible because Nike has a very deep understanding of who they are as a brand and what their role to the audience is. In fact, another footwear brand, when Nike released this campaign, like 2 months later, another footwear brand put out some sort of a campaign that was almost like that. And it almost felt like the video had to go through several meetings and different builds with people in suits. Like there's so much red tape in management before it was given a green light.
What
And
was the
I
brand?
feel like
Sino.
What was the brand?
Adidas. So moving forward, Patagonia is another example. Patagonia is an outdoor apparel brand, and they make some of the best shorts in the world. And Patagonia is a brand that has always had an excellent grasp on who they are as a brand. They care for the environment, their people, their community, their customers, and they have been very vocal about what they stand for. This is the same company that closes all their stores to encourage their staff to vote. This is the same company that has a self-imposed earth tax, and the same ballsy people who filed a case against Trump over land.
Fuck Trump.
When the pandemic happened and there was a discussion about what would happen to stores because it wasn't safe anymore, Patagonia did not wait for instructions from the government or from the city to say, you know what, we need to close down. They didn't wait for that. They knew that the right thing to do was to close down immediately. And Patagonia was one of the first ones to shut down their stores because of COVID. And it didn't just shut down the retail stores, it even shut down their website because they said, you know what, we still have people working at the warehouse and we want to keep them safe. So before any government mandate, they were the first ones to really shut down. And I feel like for a brand to be this quick when making a decision this big, yeah, it's a business decision, but the business decision is well rooted in who they are as a brand. So like there's a lot of content that goes out, and a lot of times the conversation happens on certain platforms. So Lex will take us through some of the platform studies that we've made.
So this is our last point actually for this situation. Content is great, but it's nothing without a proper platform. Some of the time, brands don't really waste any effort when it comes to extending their content verticals or exploring new platforms, since they see that it doesn't automatically correlate to sales. And, I kind of understand where you're coming from, but I think there's also a discussion to be had on pointing out the value of accessing these touch points to tell more about who you are as a brand or your brand story. And when I think about brand story, it's not like, when you make a deck and then you have to present it to like potential investors, or, it's not like a yearly video that's motivational that you send out to people who follow your page. Like, it's not like a corporate social responsibility thing. I feel like it could be zoomed in on like the very small touches that we do as a brand. You could say that it could be like the IG stories of what you posted today with your brand. It could be the IG stories of people in your team connected to the brand. And it can even be the same stories from users who follow your brand, like user-generated content. During this time where, we're physically isolated from each other, I just want to stress the need of controlling your brand narrative. by using relevant tools in our disposal, meaning we have so many platforms that we ourselves use, like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, now even TikTok. I also want to stress out something underrated that's in the slide, like emails and newsletters. I used to see emails as something that, you just get a spam, like when you try to join a website and they ask you to join a newsletter, and then you have to check it before you could log in or create an account.
Yeah.
And it's always been something that, you just set aside. But now I kind of see like brands really actively using newsletters as a way to directly communicate to the customers, since there's also a way for emails to be informed by the behaviors of the people who follow the page or the people who made the purchase. There are such things like social listening tools, analytical tools that come into play, and I feel like they're all integral parts of email marketing. Pao, we've done newsletters before. Do you
Yeah.
share the same thoughts?
Yeah, so regarding newsletters, like I cannot stress the importance of below the line communication. And these are using platforms that you can utilize that already have a targeted captured audience. So when I had a brand, I had like a little brand back in 2015. And this was a time where no Gen Y or Gen Z was looking at their email for promotions or whatever. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to explore what it was like to kind of just like tap all the platforms I had available for me that were for free. What I did was I put a call on my social media pages asking people to join my newsletter. And over the weekend, the course of like 2, 3 days, I gathered about 50 to 60 emails on that list. And then what I did on a weekly basis, I started sending them relevant content. So I mean, relevant to the brand that I was handling. So I sent them, mobile wallpapers, Spotify playlists, a curation of links that I've enjoyed. And when it was time to release my collection, mind you, this is 2015. I thought, why not send it to this list since they were already engaged? So I sent them like a PDF of like all the clothes that I had, and they were able to, place a pre-order before I even announced it. And I sold out before I even released it publicly. So I had to like go back to my manufacturers and say like, yo, I need another batch because like I've sold out just from pre-orders. But what's
Very
important
advanced.
is to really take your loyal customers and use your platforms wisely to amplify your message to this audience.
I think what we're saying is, with all these platforms there, you don't necessarily have to join all of them. I think the rules of where you are participating and where you are visible isn't really clear cut. But I think what is being intentional with defining the roles of each of these touch points. Since these platforms aren't just products. They're all the ways that customers can see you and possibly even engage with you. And
Right?
having
Because
this kind of,
because you could just make everything from every touch point, but it wouldn't sound or even look sincerely as your brand if it doesn't have like the attention needed to it, or if it doesn't have what your core is leading through it.
You know what I found that's actually, for me, it's pretty genius. Remember a few months back when you would go to the front page of Facebook and then you would see all these ukay resellers going
Hell
live.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's not just a way for them to, actively engage or just show the product. First, it shows the product. Second, when it comes to the actual algorithm of Facebook, they go right to the top. So that's why we see them in the front page. And third, it allows them to like
Smart.
engage with the customers. Like they're asking like, like they're saying mine and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
it's not just the ukay resellers. I saw Atmos
Everyone.
Bangkok doing
Yeah.
that. Like retailers, like they go in front of the camera holding the shoe. And I feel like, yeah, it's such a cool thing to do. But for
That's
me, it's also
crazy.
like, yeah. And I feel like in this time of social isolation, you can't not go digital.
Yep.
And with digital, aside from the social media platforms that we mentioned, it's more of, I kind of want to focus then on like specific new media or non-traditional new media. So for the first case study, we have the Travis Scott Fortnite event. If you guys don't know Fortnite, it's this really popular video game. It's basically a space where 100 or so people engage by battling each other out, like shooting each other. But now I think it's becoming more of like a space for people to just interact. Like they can purchase skins that make them look like however they want. There's a ton of like customization involved. And the actual environment is dynamic since you engage with like other people there. And from what I remember, it's free. So there's no barrier to entry. So for this Travis Scott like Fortnite collaboration, Travis Scott is this huge multimillionaire hip hop artist. And then what he basically did, or what they basically did, they had this um, event where it's kind of like a concert, but it's inside the game. And Travis Scott is this huge avatar that you guys are all surrounding, and then he's playing his original songs, he's playing his music. It was actually really crazy. What happened was they had more than 12 million concurrent users or viewers, and some of them even had to watch it twice. So what does that mean exactly for the relationship between Travis Scott and Fortnite? Travis Scott, he has this collab with Jordan, and then for sure he was wearing the Jordans during the actual event. So that's one that adds credibility to the brand or more attention to the brand. Second, they also had some in-game currency where people could dress as Travis Scott. So that equates to sales.
Wow.
Like actually, like for one of the skins, if I'm not mistaken, it's like $15 to $20. And then imagine if one person or at least half of those 12 million people bought. It's wild.
Dang, that's crazy. So it's a lot of white people that could be black now.
Moving on to the next case study.
Baka ma-cancel pa tayo.
Oh wait, can we all agree that concert is the best concert of 2020 so far?
Because it's the only concert in 2020 so far.
Yeah, that's also completely unrelated, but like that's also such a good point on how music platforms can happen digitally and still have the same kind of vibrant energy when you're in real life. In real life, it's wild. So moving on to Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing is the complete opposite of Fortnite. You don't kill anyone. You basically there's no like time limit. There's no goal. You fish. You plant trees, and you design. And one of those things is like there's this in-game mechanic where you can design the clothes that you could wear. So it could be anything from like a jumpsuit. It could be anything from like a blazer or even beachwear. And the customization gives people so much more freedom when it comes to like personalizing who they are. So it's like a venue for self-expression. I think in this context, especially what happened was Animal Crossing came a little bit after the lockdown here in the Philippines and the pandemic. And it was such a weird effect wherein people could still virtually hang out. Like me and Pau, we would hang out in Animal Crossing, even though it was during these weird times. And the good thing about that then is like we managed to wear like clothes we don't have.
Yeah.
So it's like an escape for people who are isolated at home, making their own world and being connected with like their friends and family or anyone in their network, basically.
Living a different life.
Yeah, you could even say it's like an ideal life.
The life you want to live.
The life you can never live. Oh.
But with the design mechanic with designing the actual clothes, it was just like a matter of time before people could hop in and just explore all the possibilities. So there was this one account, it's called Animal Crossing Fashion Archive. I personally feel like they were one of the first to create like a literal archive via Instagram of people wearing fits. And it wasn't just like a curation of outfits, but they actually managed to collaborate with the brands that they designed for or they replicated inside the game.
Going to be discussing about connection. And one of the things that we've noticed was how brands have changed the way they connected with their customers. So we're noticing that as a strategy, many brands are starting to move out of wholesale to focus on their own direct-to-consumer channels. So this strategy allows them to gain obviously better margin since they cut out the middleman, but it also allows for full control in every point of the customer journey. In a report by the Business of Fashion, Gucci currently generates 85% of their sales from its own channels. But even with 85%, they're still looking to increase that number. You know, you'd think that you'd go to like a multi-brand store or you'd go to a luxury department store and you'd see Gucci. That's actually not where they make their money. They make their money directly on their own platforms. And they were able to build such a solid customer base because they own every single touch point, whether it's customer acquisition or whether it's already on the point of sale, everything they own. So in a report by Forbes also that I came across, traditional retailers like have scrambled to manage store closures and rebalance their inventory, but direct to consumer brands continued selling online. And in that survey, more than 52% of the people said that they've even experienced the surge in demand during the pandemic. I remember when I had a brand as well, it was around 2013, 2014, like I ran like a small t-shirt brand. I was a child. But I had a dream to be stocked in a store. I just wanted to see my clothes on a rack, you know? And one day this multi-brand streetwear store in Singapore approached me and asked, you know, if I had a line sheet. And I was just like, of course I had a line sheet. And then I ran home and I Googled what is a line sheet. You know, but with stores closing around the world, like, is that still something that's on the top of every brand owner's minds? Not at all, because I think the move now is to focus on on your own channels and strengthen each and every touch point, because this is what every brand will be doing. So if you're a brand owner, or even if you're a multi-brand owner, how do you survive in the DTC era? So first point here is, in the DTC era, the goal of brands will now have to be to increase brand loyalty among their audience. What some brands have done is to double down on the credibility that helped them become relevant in the first place. They've done this by identifying what they do best and then doubling down on that. So with brands like Bodhi, with Thom Browne, with Rick Owens, like, you know, it may look like a uniform, or, you know, it may look like a very specific aesthetic, but it's them doing what they do best. And with many brands pulling away from the wholesale model, they have to be as engaging. They have to be more engaging, actually, for customers to go out of their way to engage with them. So my personal thoughts on this is that in the next few years, I think that customers will be fully focused on individual brands at times of engagement. So I think that there's a chance that more customers will be engaging, for example, with a brand, not on a multi-brand website or a department store, but instead experiencing it in their own space. So whether it's their own website or whether it's in their own store. A case study that came up was somebody like Raf. So Raf Simons is an interesting case. He's built such a dedicated tribe that has followed him everywhere he went, from Jill Sander, Dior, to Calvin Klein, and now Prada. And what he's doing with his brand this season is he announced that he was going to reissue 100 pieces from his archive dating from 1995 onwards. And like, a thing about Raf's archives is like, these pieces are of so much value. There was this guy just, I think yesterday, on one of the local Facebook groups, who was able to find a Raf piece from 2005. So it's like dirty hoodie. It looks like it smells bad. It looks like it was in the back of the ukay, in the back of the rack where the rain was falling and they never washed it anymore. But it was from 2005 Raf, and he was able to sell that hoodie for 65,000 pesos. Like, that's how much value there is in Raf archives. So, you know, even if the move of Raf is to celebrate the brand's 25th anniversary, what he's doing when he releases the 100 pieces of his archive, it's really just strengthening his loyal fan base. It's fan service at this point, I would say. And it's gone so far as there was news the other week that somebody was able to get his hands on Raf's senior thesis project when he was still in design school. I think it was like a piece of furniture, and it was being sold for $100,000 US.
Would you buy that? Would you buy that?
Yes, but yeah, I would. But I think what's important here is that you have to be able to really double down on brand loyalty. And what that means is doing what you do best and making sure that you're able to engage with all your customers in every touch point. Another thing is to connect with your customers by expanding your universe and catering to their other needs. So what does this mean? It's a lifestyle, more than ever, brands are expanding their universe beyond product to keep customers engaged beyond their purchase. How do you do this? You have to understand who your consumers are. You have to know what they're into. You have to know what music they listen to, what they eat. You have to understand what they consume, what content they consume. And you have to, from there, you have to identify their needs so that you could serve them better. So some examples is Remova, who, they're known for their luggage carriers, but they've been selling phone cases and small accessories. Just last week, the brand ventured into sunglasses and eyewear and labeled it a new generation of travel tools. And, it's not like it's off brand, because they are still serving a need of the customer beyond the product that they're already known for. I have my personal thoughts about Virgil that I shouldn't discuss here. But you can't also deny how he's able to exist in every part of his customers' lives. So he's not just in the wardrobes of people. Unfortunately, now he's in their rooms. So, it's not just the luxury. It's bad. Like, it's not just the luxury brands that are doing this, though. Streetwear has been doing this for years. And I think, like, one of my favorite things to do is to wait for Supreme's accessory line every season, because they come out with, like, the dumbest shit sometimes. It's so ridiculous, but it's so on brand.
Yep.
Past seasons they've released
Everything.
they've released like a Metro card, which it was great, because like they just put it in the machines, and like people would like take a card out of the MTA machine, and then like it's a Supreme card.
Yep.
They've done they have pillboxes, they have dog bowls. They had a collaboration with Honda where they made a motorcycle, and I think like a couple of seasons ago they made a brick. Now, I'm not sure exactly why, but they made a brick. And this was sold for, I think, like it sold for, if I'm not mistaken, like around $15 to $20. But on the resale market, this brick was at like $100.
How much did you pay for yours?
He has a brick oven just made of Supreme.
and Oreos as well.
Show it.
I'll bring it out later in the Q&A, but I'm not proud of it. I'm also not ashamed.
I want it though.
Yeah,
That's the weird thing. I don't know why, but I want it.
I'm still waiting for the Supreme contact lenses.
It's going to happen soon. They've already done Oreo this season, so it's going to happen soon. But more than just like accessories, like some multi-brands are adjusting as well. So Kith, on the top left, it's a multi-brand retailer, so they sell sneakers and apparel in New York. They have a dessert shop inside their store called Kith Treats, with ice cream flavors named after rappers and people in the hip-hop community that helped them design the flavors. I've personally been to Kith Treats, and when I was in New York, I'd drop by, I'd like go into Kith, like not look at anything, go straight to Kith Treats and like get me something nice.
Mm-hmm.
Some people do argue that Kith Treats was better than the clothes that they put out. Anyways, on the right side, the man, you have like a brand like Stussy. No, not Stussy, sorry. Saturdays NYC. So the brand that Lex mentioned earlier. It's a store, but it also now functions as a cafe. Engineered Garments, on like the bottom left, they collaborated with Ipudo, New York, to create their uniforms. And like you have APC collaborating with Aesop for Home Goods to make post poo drops. So this is just some of the examples brands are doing to be a part of our lives beyond the product that they make. And with the pivot to DTC, the question is now what happens to the multi-brand? So there may be some people in this conference or in this talk who are handling multi-brands, which means you have a store or a website that carries different brands. It's not a discussion anymore on whether or not you should be selling online. It's a discussion on how well you can utilize your channels. So case study was Nike. In a very ballsy move, Nike pulled out from one of the world's biggest retailers. Why? it's a margin move. If they have the capability to skip the middleman, why not? And screw Bezos anyways. Like, why give him more money, right? But what this does is it also gives Nike better insights into their customers, and it allows them to own the touch points and interaction with its audiences from A to Z. So if they want to do like a special release, easy. They do it on their website. They want to launch a campaign, fine, they do it. They want to decide which products go to which market, easy. But then that leaves the question, what does this mean for the multi-brand? So for a multi-brand to survive, it really has to be a storyteller. It might even have to be a better storyteller or provide a different perspective from the brand itself. One of our favorite multi-brands is, sorry, Brian, what's Notre. Yeah, so we asked last night how they pronounce their name. So it's like Notre.
Just to be sure.
Just to be sure, just so we're not bringing it. It's Notre.
Thank God they replied.
Yeah. What they did recently was, in celebration of Air Max Day, they commissioned an artist to create a rug inspired by the pattern on the shoe. So if you look at the left, like that's the rug that was actually inspired by the shoe. And knowing that they couldn't give the rug to everyone, they tapped a company to produce an augmented reality rug that their community can have wherever they were. So this is just one of the ways also that Notre and Nike is trying to get them in every part of your life, not just with sneakers. Another example that they did, and this is great storytelling as well, they released the Space Hippie sneaker, which is Nike's most sustainable shoe. So with the conversation around sustainability and being green, they tapped a company that translated plant biorhythms into music. I'm not sure how that works, but what they were able to do was the brand assembled like a little grove or a little jungle inside their store. And they were basically streaming the sounds of plants for 36 hours.
Crazy.
So that's like another way that they've, done some storytelling as well. One of my favorite things that they've done and recently was they did this thing during lockdown when, they were challenged by the constraints of social distancing. With the pandemic happening, how do you go out and shoot? They did a collaboration with some of their tech brands. So it's their more tech-based fabrics and tech-based brands. And what they did was they produced a studio shoot with no interaction. So they designed the multi-camera rig, they operated it via remote, and the photographer was just wherever controlling the robots in that studio. The only person in the studio was the model. And I think, with a constraint like that, like the creativity that comes out is insane.
Right.
But I also think that brands should have a very, very specific voice. And it's not just in the way they communicate or the way they storytell, but the storytelling also has to happen with how they curate and present their product. I did a little study last night and I was just like, okay, 3 very different retailers, Union in LA, Essence and Haven from Toronto. These are 3 very different multi-brand retailers with a very specific voice. And I wanted to see how they would style and present a pair of Chuck 70s, it's just a pair of Chucks. Like you can't get any more basic than that. So Haven on the right, they're known for their more utilitarian garments. They're known for their more tech garments. And you could see that, the way they styled it was very, for the streets, it was very appropriate for weather, being as that's what the multi-brand retailer wants to push. But when Essence would style a 70, it would be very luxurious. So whatever, even if it's just like a normal Chuck, they can make it look like it's very high fashion. And with Union's known for being very high-low. So they would pair some Vans or a pair of Chucks with ripped jeans and they'd put on a Marni jacket. So you could see that, it's not just, you're not limited to like the way you communicate. You're also limited to, the products that you bring in.
Which one's your mood, pal?
Union for sure. I feel like I'm more of a Union.
The guy in
Choose your fighter.
I'm an Essence hoe. I want to be the guy in the middle.
I'm whatever they are, dirty, like the dirty version.
This is Monday off. This is the Monday off mood board.
This is the Monday off boys, basically. So our personal style is just lifted from e-com shots from Essence and Union.
And it's true to size then.
Everything is true to size.
I'm the tallest guy.
Jeez.
No, I'm just playing.
So I think with that said, our next guest does a very, very good job at managing his own existing platforms and also being in certain multi-brand stores that really tell his story. So without further ado, and this is a guy that needs no introduction, palakpakan naman, let's welcome Carl Jan Cruz. Carl Jan Cruz!
Hi everyone.
Are you there? Are you on video? I can't see you.
I'm so embarrassed. Like this is
What's
the
up?
first
Nice
time
to meet
we.
you guys
Hey.
properly. Hi.
Hey, how are you?
It's been really good. Good. It's been really nice. It's been such a fun and humorous and knowledgeable talk so far. I've been so engaged.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
We
so
really
much.
appreciate it.
Essence kept being brought up, so I just want to Paulo. So the head guy who developed the imagery for that is Pinoy. So he used to be in pharmacy and he developed it like with the founders like 7 years ago. So he's like based in
Wow.
Montreal. Yeah.
Pinoy
I'll send
pride.
you guys his profile.
We would appreciate that. Thank you. Please don't share with
Crazy.
anyone else,
Yeah,
just
he's the
us.
one who's been doing the product photographs and
Uh-oh.
It's crazy.
but
You there? Are you there?
I'm good. Oh sorry, was
You lagged a
my
little bit.
Yeah.
that it's raining kasi.
All
Yeah.
right.
Hi
It's
guys.
also
So
raining on
yeah.
our side. Okay, first of all, thank you, CJ, for joining us. It was a very busy night last night, as I saw on Instagram. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Really good. I mean, honestly, it's a non-issue really that just needed ironing.
Great. So we wanted to start. So for the people in the audience who are not yet aware of the new website, could you share with us some insight on what led you to expand the Carl Jan Cruz universe and launch Carl Jan Cruz with a Z.com?
Z.
Yeah,
Um,
how was that?
well, it actually is. Everything just came out of practicality. I feel like this is going to be a common thread from the conversations here. How it's not every decision from the back end. We are relatively a small team of like 8, and I like especially run the operations as well. So the conversations aren't even strategic. It's more about like practical and like what's important. Since the shift of things, aka Miss Rona, we just had to kind of I guess realign and see what was important, which was mainly really for us, which is our team.
I'd also like to ask, like before this pandemic, like what other touch points did you have and how were you able to connect to your market before this all happened?
Ooh.
Before
Before.
it was not operational. Copy? Am I
A little choppy, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
okay?
kind of cutting off.
I'm gonna move a little closer to the router, if that makes it better.
Yeah.
Right, we're all at our homes.
Maybe you can
Is it
smack
better now?
the router.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
way better.
Yeah, way better actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my laptop's weirdly doing like it's voluntarily zooming. I hope that's not a let me close some things here. Okay. No, beforehand we had a showroom here in Manila, which we've closed. And then we used to do Market Week, aka Paris Fashion Week. And I guess we were also doing our regular retail operations with our stockists, like locally and internationally. That was our touch points with our clientele. So pretty much that has really changed 5 months ago.
Could you tell us a little bit about the success once you've moved into DTC? Like I saw like a lot of things sold out really fast.
Oh,
Right.
my.
I guess the narrative has always. I was actually looking at the format of our conversation, and the whole direct to consumer, I guess, is it's always been there since the beginning. Maybe it was never clear that we've never really hired a PR or a marketing strategist for the brand since. I mean, as of the recent, we had a direct collaborator who's JV from New York, but it's basically all operated internally, same as how you guys were addressing with Gucci's move or other brands that the line of decision was pretty fast. And I guess even making all of these conversations with our stockists or our customers, there's always a touch of like it's personalized in a sense because it comes from, even if it comes from maybe our team, there's always like we meet about it, we discuss about it, from like people who are happy to have, who has issues, like we still discuss because we need to decide on it as a group. So when I guess the opportunity, or should I say the choice, or the only choice we've had was to go online, it was more about really recommunicating where we are moving, like our new format. There was not really much change in terms of a tone or what we were going to let them know. Maybe it's more of like drastic plans because of the practicality of what everyone's going through now. But that was more of the scary part because like letting go of the collection formats, taking off a lot of miscellaneous margins for us and making sure we're able to like not to associate too much on being too aspirational right now, but be more probably inspirational, since fashion generally could be far reaching. So we want people to feel that it can be even consumed visually, and if ever they do decide that they want to buy into it, that it doesn't feel too much of a commitment. Which is a big shift for us because majority of the time we always have focus on technical and artisanal like outcomes in our garments, but like we've made peace and embrace that too, that will just have to come at a better time, or should I say like a right time.
Thank you for sharing. I mean, when I saw the Jan Cruz Pambahay collection, I thought that was one of the most brilliant things I've actually seen.
Yeah,
It
so
wasn't just the
cool.
launch of the website, but managing the tone. And I think when you said that the goal wasn't to be aspirational right now, but to be inspirational, I thought that for me that a brand can only make those decisions so quick if they really knew themselves. And you mentioned earlier about tone. And keeping that consistent tone even in a digital platform. One of my personal favorite things about the website was how you were able to control every touch point, even down to how you communicate a sold out product. I got some screen caps here, but how intentional was this for you and the team?
Let's just say we have probably allowed happy hour pretty much any time of the day, since we
Yes.
barely see each other, like with the limit. I mean, just full transparency, we're barely seeing anyone. That's the most social thing we are finding ourselves in. So like there might be or may not be a cocktail or a drink that is within our reach in the fridge. That I guess that kind of like has evolved into like breaking down some of the walls and like complications of like thinking too much about what our pre-existing audience would think right away. It's interesting because I guess you guys were also thinking or discussing earlier how it's so essential knowing what music or hobbies or sensibilities these audience had. And I think that was what we done in the past 5 years as a brand, and now it was a lot about what probably they haven't expected, that they probably are just aware of, but they could find some more likeness into it, that it's not probably what they're accustomed to, or they know that this is how we're just really conversing about it. Like this controversial, like even that that commitment to the bralette to be named as a salungso was something that we're even anticipating that could be a cultural conversation, because it's actually a colloquial term coined in the 50s, and we're well aware that people, academes are like not really recognizing that word, or that it does show a lower form of Filipino. However, I guess for us, we really had to like question each other, especially like our female staffers, if it were something offensive. However, it was something that really evolved into like, it is what it is. Like, it really showed more of like embracing the humor of that Pinoyness. Na, I guess like we what we realized is that even doing showrooms in Paris, because we do mount that independently, that when we do get our repeat appointments, that they actually know, like sometimes I didn't know they would pick up like lang, or they would pick up like char something like that, like really slang things that they're like, oh, that means like it's a joke, right? And I was like, yeah. But I guess it was like in lightness of things, of like sharing where we're coming from. And also there was that concern of like maybe alienating people of because our audience has become 50-50 of local and international. But it's also refreshing that people who are from the outside have really given us a feedback of like, they gave that effort to understand or embrace the format of it. Even like I didn't know that button bilina would be something learned for them, that that's like shop, like purchase. So it was, I guess it was something that it was definitely that saying that it's a suntok sa buwan. It's definitely a leap for us. However, it was like, if we were gonna go this way, this is the way for us to go then. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
I really commend you for like just sharing how you took all those steps into just making sure that the pieces that you make, the names that you make, or the names that you associate with them is heavily like thought of. And I think it's like really nice also that you're giving these like these terms, these like all these like Tagalog words that no one has heard of before, because it's not common, more empowering. It has a more empowering silhouette because of the clothes that you make. I think that's just amazing.
Thank you.
I'd like to pivot a bit, because what's interesting is you have your own DTC channels, but you still stock at other stores. And I'm very sure that like a lot of stores have been asking for some Carl Jan Cruz to be stocked, but you're also very selective with the stores that you work with. Could you tell us a little bit about how you sift through all these stores and identify the ones that could actually tell your story?
Again, like when I was looking at this format, I guess it really began that the way I really peddled, like that's really the natural term, the brand in the earlier years, was to knock on doors. Like I remember being able to just pack the suitcases of collection and sending cold emails to stores that we liked, or I just like that story of like, like maybe one day I do want to be stock in this store, that they would reply, and like it would be like meetings from the back end of their like showrooms or headquarters, and like piling all of these clothes on top of their tables, and they're probably like, where is this kid coming from? Like, why is he like unpacking all of these clothes? And I have to even explain like, oh yeah, like where Manila is, how the proximity is probably like it's by Hong Kong, but it's like probably a little like Southeast Asian. So it's like I realized in time to simplify that the introduction of the contemporary Filipino fashion concept is something new, even to this day. And when I did that for probably 2 years and another 3 years until like earlier this year of like mounting our independent platforms even abroad, which is a commitment yet again, that it really was able to house a community. Like it wasn't just as transactional of just coming into the showroom, because that's what we made sure that sometimes like people who are not familiar with our culture or what we do as a brand would just probably be smelling like sinigang or seeing dried mangoes or like, you know, things that you didn't even think that they would be in an alien concept because it's not something they have smelled before or seen. So there's just like random curiosities that they would ask. To this day, I guess that's how we built our conversations with our stockists to being an independent brand, that we were able to design not just the clothes, but however the business that we have pursued with them, that all of these stores are actually in very respect in all the respects of their contracts. That we have an understanding, because there was a lengthy conversation of me understanding how their business works and them understanding how my business work, and for us finding like ways, because it's always the very first thing that's brought there is a geographic difference. You know, they're so used to like importing from like Italy, like, you know, fashion capitals.
Yeah.
And that's always the beginning point. And I feel like that's where it starts. That's where the commitment starts, of like where these conversations go, of like how do you do wholesale or how do you do consignment? What's the percentage? Like that breaks it down on a more practical side of things. That we are supporting each other, to now that I know like it's more difficult to even have these conversations with our stockists now, because we have this like common enemy. However, in different parts of the world, everyone is going through it, like, you know, different experiences.
Yeah.
So when we would make that call in Canada, when we would make that call in America or in Japan, it's really like it's again like a whole new it's a new foundation from that a pre-existing understanding of where they're heading at, because we really feel like they're shifting themselves, and that for us even explaining that, oh yeah, you guys would be not retailing anything above 150 from us. It's like you can't expect any denims from us, or you can't really expect any of this collection. But I guess what's reassuring is that they've already seen what's being done digitally, and they've followed through, that they understand the narrative on behalf of what's going on here too, that they see that we understand how that's mirroring into our work. So yeah, I think it's not like there's a solution right now, but we're more, it's an understatement to even say that we're very lucky or grateful that these pipelines are open, because we were already expecting, like, you know, like for the worst. I mean, I'm even every day, as earlier was said, that every day is volatile, that we expect the worst is yet to come, and we didn't even expect to push through with any of our fall winter deliveries, which is supposed to be shipping this month of August. Like, we've canceled it out last March. Everyone system to make sure that we've cleared out our calendar and we could plan differently, and for them to also, like, I guess, like, you know, like they were already like, I could understand as a niche or like a business that they were reallocating their resources. Sorry, am I choppy? Was I choppy, guys?
We can hear you.
They were reallocating their resources, and parang that was not it wasn't something I needed to ask. It was something that we acknowledged, that it was interestingly 5 months now, because we've just been having a conversations last week that it was basically a mutual understanding. Like they didn't put any pressure on us. We didn't put any pressure on them. Everyone was busy, like, you know, doing what they need to do. So yeah, I guess that's where it is at with multi-brands. It's scary.
Yeah.
A lot of them are going.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, thank you, CJ. We really appreciate it.
I heard, diba, parang we were talking before, very sad na opening ceremony is closing down their multi-brand. Diba that's one of the to you. Is that better? That's quite sad, no, but I think Paulo said something, sorry.
Oh.
No, like I was just agreeing that it's really sad how, like, you know, Totokelo and even Need Supply are shutting down. Like, I didn't think that, you know, they would be at a place where they might have to close. It's pretty insane.
Yeah. All right.
Esme, do we have a question from a guest?
Yes, we do have a question from one of the attendees. They don't want to put their name here. So whoever this is, so I'm not sure if this was I know. I'm not sure if this was already answered earlier during the discussion, but just a direct answer from the three guys and also CJ. So for us brands that have already created a collection pre-pandemic, how do you think we can recommunicate them to our audience?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
For the brands that have already created the collection pre-pandemic, pre-Miss Rona and everything, how do you think we can recommunicate them to our audience?
I mean, that's really general, especially every brand has their own story, right? I guess it's really how you would approach it, or actually not approach it. I'm also openly saying here that what we are working towards on is actually to be to basically work less but probably do more as a brand and say less. I'm understanding it that in the long run, I'm getting to a point that things can wait. That's one thing I'm understanding, especially after the easement of the lockdown, Philippine-centric specifically, because we're in that situation that we can't stick to that plan as much as you've prepared for it. Like for us, it's continuously changing. So for us, we're also just preparing that, especially coming from a small brand or someone who's emerging, or I guess like, you know, anyone right now, because even the bigger establishments are getting hit really, really bad too. That for us, the whole goal is to have health and safety innovate our ideas right now. Like those two words are more of like the directive for us. So we don't really have a roadmap of like what are we supposed to like showcase, but perhaps sticking to like owning your space online and keeping it as it is, refining it, and just like let it brew for yourself, and then people will find you. I mean, that's how it has worked before physically. Hopefully it could work like that digitally.
Thank you, CJ. I don't have anything else to add to that. I think that was perfect. I mean, you captured everything that, you know, we are going through and everything that we still kind of have to go through. Like the truth is, like, this is not over yet. We're still seeing, you know, like while we're pivoting, it's not like, you know, we can rest already. There's still a lot to be done. But thank you, CJ, for taking your time to be here with us. We learned a lot from you, and I really appreciate you coming on board. Thank you so much.
Thank you for.
Just like
Just thank you.
Oh,
Thanks, CJ.
should I be back? Sorry.
yeah.
Was that
You lagged a
the
little
exit?
bit. You lagged a little bit. You can try that again. Thank you, CJ. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll see you guys again later.
Thank you. Thanks, Esme. All right,
That was
so
Lex
moving
last night.
forward. Yeah, so like Lex told me this morning, he was just like, I had a dream that I woke up with some Jan Cruz pieces in my wardrobe, and I didn't want to wake up anymore. Um, so moving forward, we're gonna talk about the last C. Um, to tie everything together
Good.
is just a discussion on community.
Gang.
We came across this quote online from a business consultant, and he said this: if you have a community, if you sorry, let me start again. He said this: if you don't have a community, don't start a brand. The reason why we didn't put that quote up here is because we're also not sure where that stands. Like, can you start a community? Can you start a brand and then your community will follow, or can you start, or can you have a community and then the brand will follow? It's a chicken and egg situation. But what's important here is, do you have a community to begin
Yeah.
with?
Yeah.
So we're gonna move forward, and Lex is gonna talk to us about how youth culture is actually the community that's been defining a lot of things now. Lex. Paso.
Next slide. Thanks, Pao. So let's imagine the scenario that's been happening for the past few decades. So since the onset of the 80s, the 90s, early 2000s, most of what comes off as culture, or what we process as culture, it's coming from a top-down approach or top-down perspective. So we have these fashion houses, and then they have these collections on these runways, and then it gets picked up in the paper, or gets covered on the TV, and then somehow some smaller retail brands are gonna replicate those designs, and then they're gonna have it for the mass market. That's usually how it went, like from the top down. But what we've noticed is in the past 5 years, this kind of top-down approach, not only has it been disrupted, but it's been totally like reversed. So the center of this, we feel like it's social media in the internet. Like we have, well, first off, let's talk about the slide that we have. It's the Stussy International Tribe, and then we also have the Supreme Team. During that time, they didn't have, it wasn't necessarily like an internet thing. It was more of these people rotating in the same subcultures, like skaters, surfers, people who like design, graffiti artists, hip hop artists, and all that. And somehow they propagated such a widespread phenomenon for these brands through just representing themselves. So you would say that they're kind of like brand ambassadors in a way. But now at this point, just to hone in on like the community aspect of all of it, if you think about it, there's so many Facebook groups or online communities focused or devoted in like a certain brand. Like we have Adidas Talk Philippines, we have Nike Talk Philippines. We also have some groups that primarily just talk about high fashion. We have some groups just talking about workwear. And it's this kind of decentralized movement of information that has completely reversed the top-down approach. And I feel like what's happening is that they're having these conversations outside of the mainstream since they were outside of that loop. But now they're at the forefront of it. And with this kind of movement, you could say, streetwear has been ahead of the curve all this time. Everything that they've been doing in the past 10, 20 years, it's happening now. And, Pao, we also talked about this, like how streetwear has impacted high fashion right now.
Yeah, so there's always that discussion about like, high fashion would say that, oh, they've done this, but then there's conversation with streetwear saying like, oh, we've been doing that, and I think this is just, it's just evidence that a lot of the things that end up on top like really start below. It starts with the communities that kind of like brew these ideas. Like the whole idea of drops, for example, like Burberry recently did this thing I think last season, where they offered a product that you can only buy for 24 hours. And that's inspired by like, Supreme dropping certain things in like super limited amount. So like the whole drop system it's highly coveted for a limited time and limited availability. And, when Supreme started off doing that, and when other streetwear brands started doing that, it wasn't because they wanted to employ this "I need to get this now" strategy. It's just because they didn't have enough capital to actually produce enough shirts for people to buy. So, another thing is just we're seeing a convergence of high fashion and streetwear. Personally, I'm, not, I have my thoughts on that, but it's happening. Supreme back in the year 2000, what's this, almost 20 years ago, yeah, they made this Louis Vuitton print on a shirt, and when they put it out, they got a cease and desist from LV. And then 17 years later, 2017, like you have a Supreme Louis bag, and like a full collection. We have, Dior working with Sean Stussy himself. So, literally like a lot of like these references are getting pulled from streetwear. The whole thing about seasonless fashion is streetwear brands have been doing seasonless fashion because they can't really afford to do something else, and like the whole idea of like streetwear designers now taking on fashion houses like Virgil with LV, Matthew Williams going to Givenchy. What's interesting is for those who don't know is Virgil and Matthew, Virgil now works at LV, Matthew Givenchy, they used to run a brand called Bin Trill. So, there was an era in streetwear where everyone was just wearing black shirts with like big, heavy white prints. Like if you hated that era of fashion the same way I did, you can easily blame these two guys. But jumping back into the actual community itself, the reason why high fashion is tapping into this is because the streetwear community has been so strong. Like when Kanye did like the Balenciaga and Margiela stuff, like you could see that a lot of like these streetwear kids were starting to buy high fashion as well. So that's just one way the community is being tapped by the bigger houses.
Did you guys ever wear Bintrill?
Yeah, I had a Bintrill.
I had a hat. I had a fake ass Bintrill hat. I couldn't afford the damn thing.
Okay, just to hone in on basically everything that we've been saying so far, I feel like for brands and consumers, like everything's been so wonky. Like we're at the shuffle, we don't know what's going on, we don't know where we're headed. I think one way to really get back to our rhythm is to think of brands as universes. Pao touched on this earlier, kanina pa. And basically, if we have like a universe, if we consider a brand as a universe, who are the people in that universe? And that's basically about gathering your tribe or your clique, your group, your loyal following or whatever, your day ones. It's people who engage with your brand beyond product or beyond the transactional. So they're actually active consumers. They, of course, they purchase your products, but beyond that, they also embody the ideals that you want to espouse. So if it was a universe, these are the people populating that. And this idea of community, it doesn't actively translate to what we think of as community or maybe engagement. Like it's not likes, comments, or follows. It's basically about people in the street who are there with you wherever you are going. And they, coming from the consumer's perspective, they really expect to get a glimpse on what the personality of a brand is, who the creative director is, how it just goes beyond all the usual touch points that we have come to expect. And having this kind of perspective makes brands more proactive. I'd like to think that a brand's audience is what gives a brand their voice. So it's really just keeping that loop, that communication loop in a more dynamic sense. And we have some examples of brands that have taken this to some really good potentials. One thing I want to talk about is Braindead. So Braindead, it's a Los Angeles based brand. They like to see themselves as a creative collective of artists and designers from all over the world. They want to call themselves as neither one person nor an idea. It sits in the space between people. This is actually from their website. And it's a very vague sense of what a brand might be. But one thing that I really appreciated is, so basically what happened was one of the founders, Kyle Nung, I want to say called out, like he basically communicated or did an Instagram post where he mentioned all these brands from both the United States and Japan, Human Made, Capital. I'm not sure if it's like Neighborhood or Undercover, and then all the other US brands like their cohorts. They basically said that, hey, streetwear is basically or has its origins in the black community. It comes from black culture, and for us to borrow from this culture so much without giving back, especially at this time, it was disingenuous. So aside from opening this dialogue with the brands, he actively collaborated with his black artists. He Dev Hines
Dev
from Blood
Hines.
Orange, and then they came up with this design for a shirt. And with that shirt, they managed to raise $500,000 for charity towards LGBT communities and Black communities. And you know what? It didn't even hurt their brand. Like for them to step up in that way. Now they have collaborations with Reebok. Even before the pandemic, they had collaborations with ABC. And when a brand mobilizes its community for direct action, that's when I think a brand has reached its like topmost potential. And moving on to what I feel is like a similar brand in terms of scope and in terms of vision. Can we move to the next slide? I'd like to bring in Red from Wednesday.
Hey,
Red!
What's up? Hello.
Are you here?
hey,
Thanks
yeah, he's there.
for having me on, guys.
Thanks for being
Palakpakan
here,
naman
bro.
dyan.
Palakpakan naman dyan. Palakpak emojis. Come on.
What's up?
So we know the people from Wednesday personally for quite some time now. They've been on like the shoots for brands. They've been on the backs of some of our favorite artists. But I feel like it's such a good conversation to have just to talk about community. Pao, can you
Yeah, I'll jump in because I remember a very Red. I'm not gonna put you on blast here, but so there's this one time they were about to release. Correct me if I'm wrong. Your biggest collection yet. I think it's one of the first times that you did like a whole range of cut and sew, which is huge for what was a small brand like Wednesday before because um, we were stuck to doing graphic tees and everything. But now we were this is the big leagues. Like we got coach jackets now and everything. And I remember like there was just so much conversation and energy around this new release that you were going to do. So many pieces, so many items, and it was all going to drop at this one event. One event. So obviously, like that place was filled. I remember stepping into the room and like you couldn't even move anymore because there was just so much people.
It
And I
was
was
so
just
hot.
like, bro, where are the clothes? I want to see the clothes.
Yeah.
And he looked at
Yeah.
me. He's just like, the manufacturer pulled up late. We won't have the clothes actually. But I mean, the party's going on, right? And I think for me, that was like a great experience because it really spoke about the community that you have.
Yeah.
So
I
I think
think
that's what we want to talk about also.
around that time, what happened was there was an hour to go before everything was gonna start. We didn't have a single item on the racks, but the racks have arrived. So everything's set up. It looks like there should be clothes there. And then the people started showing up, and then you were there, and then you were asking me where the clothes were. Then manufacturer pulled up late, but right before, about 30 minutes before they arrived, so that was good. And I've always said, and you guys have always advised me. So I was talking about his brand in his younger years. I was a big supporter of that. I was actually part of the newsletter he was talking to me about. And
Yo,
what he also did back then was link music videos, visuals, and
deep
um,
cuts.
just music to whatever it is that you were going to order. So, you could enjoy that MHC taste or whatever that was. And whatever, and then, so yeah, you were advising me. And what was happening around that time was everything was going on. And I was never focused on sales. I would always say I'm not doing Wednesday to get rich or to gain money. And although that's not good for scaling or how to build a brand, I just feel like that's the way I want to go personally about it. And I found people who believe in the same things, and that's why we just do what we do in the way that we do. and not being so focused on the sales. We would always just rely on the message, what we were trying to tell people. And that's why that event, even though it started out shitty, it ended up being a memorable night, I think. Yeah, so at least for us, like, that was really special. That was our first event, I think. So,
Damn, so good.
Lex, do
I'd
you have a
like to ask,
question?
like,
Yeah, go ahead.
no, I'm just thinking, like, how were you able to mobilize your community recently, actually?
you
Ooh.
guys were talking a lot about like how it's hard to um you know navigate around this time right now, not only because of the COVID, but because of the political climate of what's happening. So I agree, and very on point with what you guys said about how your brand is your expression, and how you share your ideas on this, and how Noah does it, and all those brands, Brain Dead and Noah, they're a real inspiration to us, and they're what we aspire to be. Like, if we grow bigger. So lately, throughout the quarantine, we've been trying to help out those who reached us. So there are local communities in Novaliches that we assisted. It's on our Instagram. A user reached out to us, and you know, we hear news of like communities not getting their ayudas.
Mm.
Like government relief, and we need I want to be able to help out in those communities. And when someone reached out to us, I just thought that we should do something about it. We released the Let's Do This Together shirt, ended up raising 8,000 for groceries for the families there. And then during the peak of the pandemic, what was happening was there weren't any PPEs, masks, and the like available. So we also contributed to um, the Manila Protective Gear Sewing Club. That was when VP Lenny Robredo's initiative, and
Yeah.
we helped through Melvin Dave Jordan. So he's really the on the floor person there. And NCMH, we also donated by way of Queenie Galang. So you know him, Pao, old horse track associates. So yeah, we did that, and throughout this quarantine, we just keep on thinking how to give more. And we're small and all that, but I believe that whatever thing that we put out there, it could make a difference. And no matter how small an impact you make, an impact is an impact. And a
Yeah,
lot
that's
of
true.
people would do that. Like, it
Good.
would roll into like a
Yeah.
momentum, like an
Yeah.
avalanche of change. So I believe in that shit.
Yo, Red, just to ask,
Yeah.
how important is it to have a community before having a brand?
I think it's not really that I mean, it's important to have people believe in you, I think. I feel like it's important to have people who share the same ideologies in industries like this where we're making clothes. How are you gonna relate to whoever is seeing it? How are you gonna speak your message? That's always how it is to me. And it's
Mm.
always about trying to answer it in a sense of how do you get to know a person more. And that's why I guess more of our releases come off as emotional or
Very
something.
personal.
Yeah, some stuff like that, because that's exactly how we want to interact with people. You guys were talking about communicate in your communication part, how you want to, or brands should be able to open that dialogue. And Wednesday has been cryptic on a consumer side because of that very reason, that we want people to have these bizarre, almost weird conversations with us, that am I really ordering from like a clothing store? We don't want to sound like robots or shit like that. And we just want to keep encouraging that communication, because communication, I feel, is very important to humans in general, not only in streetwear or consumers, but sorry, not only in streetwear and consumers, but also like generally in people. And like from the people you live with, from
Yeah.
your place in society. Your opinions matter, the discourse is important. And at the end of the day, that's how we learn, that's how we grow, and that's all that we're trying to do all the time.
Yep. I'll add to that. I think one of the stories I've heard, and this isn't something that you talk about, Red, was you've helped out in like big ways. You've helped out from an organizational level, but I heard a story about how you had a post talking about like how difficult things were, and somebody commented, and somebody just basically shared their thoughts and said like how it's hard, and like this person did not ask for anything back. This person was just sharing how difficult the situation is wherever they were. And I heard from some people that you jumped in and you were able to activate your community to help this one person out. For me, like that was something that, obviously like I was touched, but for me, I wanted to ask, like, for you to have an empathy like this, when you were first brought into a community, like, was that how people, treated you? Was that what you experienced first before you were able to share this with other people? And before you answer that, I found some stuff. Brian and I found some stuff online. This is the first time we actually met and hung out. So there's your boy. Where's Brian? There's Brian over here. There's me. So this is the first time we actually hung out, and it was so weird because like we just went out and wore clothes. Fred, can you tell us a little bit about like how the community has impacted you to make an impact?
I guess what I'm just doing is what I learned from all the people I learned from, and tuning it to the level at which I feel like I can push myself to. And not only myself, but Wednesday and the people around me. I feel like to the point that it's kind of irritating sometimes, but I feel like it's important if we want to make progress. And, progress and growth, it's hard. You're not comfortable. You're not in your comfort zones when you're growing, So it's about learning and adapting into new situations. So basically, everything I learned when I was younger. So if you guys don't know, I'm also 35 Visionaries apprentice. I learned a lot from him. Brian and Lex are my peers. Lex is actually my roommate. He's just like,
don't tell him.
He's in the closet.
My life is, I feel like I'm never, the summit of knowledge. Like I always stand to learn something, and it's always about reacting that way and not having a hostile aura against like listening, and especially when it's something that you can find in yourself that you can improve on. So this what I'm doing with the quote unquote community, with our community, is trying to force that conversation somehow, or trying to push it, trying to really say what we're about, trying to put out there what we're about, and hopefully getting responses. And so far I guess people have been responding. I feel like I'm very proud of the people who support Wednesday, because you guys said it best. Like, it's your lifestyle, and lifestyle politics is part of that. Whatever is happening, every facet of your life. And for them to be starting to get to be more comfortable being vocal about those hard subjects is that first step towards like a future where we could probably live in a society where people are comfortable like exchanging objective ideas and like each other like bouncing forth, and not out of like we Filipinos always get pegged for crab mentality, pulling each other down. I dream of a world where we can have like open like like it's not emotional, it's not because of who you're connected with, it's not because of who you are, it's just the matter of fact of what you put out and what you represent, what you stand for, and how you manifest that in the world, and like reacting on that. So that's how I like, think of approaching the community always.
That's how I've always like commended you also, like even like from the very first collection or very first shirts you've dropped, man. Like I'm pretty sure that like you remember it, and as well as everyone that like witnessed it. When you released the first shirt that Wednesday ever did, you came out with a tee that says "Streetwear is dead," and that period of time where streetwear is like you know, there's no negative connotation about it. There's like people just loved what it was and what the streetwear community like was being, and and then you're out there just gonna gonna say that it's dead and it
Like,
doesn't make sense
what
and
led
it's
into
super
that?
advanced.
I appreciate it. Ako lang, I thought, and you guys agreed with me on this. You guys bought
I bought that
um,
shirt.
yeah, kasi streetwear was becoming consumerist. People wanted in on it for capital and like to gain money, and it wasn't like the sort of purist thing that I thought it was, like sharing messages and some wholesome stuff like that, or you know, something proud, something honorable. You know, that's how I equated like streetwear. Like these are phrases and words that, you know, that's very against the system. Kasi you know, ako, I dropped out of college. A lot of like unorthodox life choices, pero somehow surviving. I feel like somehow there's an element of the underdog in streetwear, and I resonate with that. And yung yung streetwear ngayon, it's hype, it's mainstream, diba? It's somehow like surface level, very vapid, and I don't like how that has become. Pero brands like Noah, brands like Braindead, they're like really reviving it again, I feel. You know, adding like discourse, and Bobby Hundreds being vocal about like a lot of things. He's also an inspiration.
Hell yeah.
Thank you, Red. One question. I think one last question from us is, when you've done a lot for the community, but personally as a creator and somebody who has reached out to help so many people, I'd just like to ask, like, how has the community helped you?
Ooh.
Basically responding to like everything that we put out, that's already a big help. You know, being on stuff like this is already every single step that we take into, you know, more dialogue, more conversations. This is like a big help. I'm really grateful for you guys, you know, for inviting me here, PHx Fashion Conference, for having like this kind of space for this kind of dialogue. And I'm really sure that all of these are insightful. And ako, what I think I want to like do is, how do we take this and like, you know, sort of make it more accessible to a lot more people, ganon. I feel like education is really something that's lacking in our country, because you know, our government doesn't really pay much attention to it. They have a lot, you know, of different priorities. So ako, in the privately started conversation topics like this one are really, really important. And like, you know, mga people out there that I see who also do that, you know, mga micro press, you know, hustle, like, you know, basically mga infographics where they try to break down information and give it back. So yung mga ganon, I feel like that's how the community is giving back to me. Kasi I'm just taking all that I can learn, alam mo yun, from everyone. And at the same time, it's like they're also helping sustaining us from a practicality sense, because they've been supporting our stuff as well, you know. So Isai and Carl, CJ were talking about how hard it is to release now, and you know, it's the same for us. It's hard to release something, and you know, but right now, not having work, we kind of have to depend on Wednesday. So that's kind of becoming the becoming the thing for us, that this has become a job, and out of practicality we continue it. So yeah, but we try to pair it hand in hand with, you know, whatever we're fighting for, and you know, hopefully at the end of the day, like makes more good, you know, than, you know, it's better than being passive, I guess.
Hell yeah.
Thank you, Red. Appreciate it. Esme, do we have any questions from the crowd?
Yeah, actually, I have one. But before we move on, I actually just want to thank you for being on board. And with what you said regarding this platform, this is the whole reason why this started. Because when this was started by young designers who didn't know what to do, we had missed opportunities outside of the country because we didn't know what to do. We don't know where to go. And this is the whole reason why the PHx Fashion Conference started. And I just want to thank also Monday Off, because I know only Lex personally, and Bryan and Paulo I just met online, and we're very thankful for you guys sharing these thoughts today. It's been super insightful. A lot of people had fun, and yeah, hopefully we continue this whole thing. Community, it's all about community. It's all about growing together as a group and youngsters, that like what they said. But yeah, so regarding the question, I do have another one from anonymous attendee. They don't want to say their names. Keeping the current
Oh, you're
cases in
mysterious.
mind. Ayaw nila. So for people who want to create something, whether during or post-quarantine, but have no connections or community whatsoever, what are some advices you could give to people, especially quote-unquote youngsters, who are interested in trying to make something out of nothing?
Ooh.
Yeah,
Yeah, Red, that's yours. You take that.
Keeping on, yeah.
I guess. Sorry. Can you like repeat some? Can you repeat the whole question again?
Okay,
It's
sure.
a long ass.
So,
My bad. I like spaced
so
out for a second.
what are your, yeah, what are your advices to people who are interested in trying to make something out of nothing during this quarantine or even post-COVID?
All right, yes. So for me first, regard the practicality, again, they were discussing before that it's not really a good time to start your brand, and that's very true. Production has taken a hit. 5 months into the quarantine, we were doing nothing, absolutely nothing, but just trying to push our old products. So right now, yeah, let those ideas too. But at the same time, I feel like you should resonate on what you want to say. I feel like a lot of brands right now, they don't know, they're very scattered. The reason why I don't like a lot of brands is because they're scattered in their message. So try to resonate in what you want to say and like what your ideologies and what your brand is going to stand for. Try to think about all those things and then double down, and then go forth with it when things clear up, because it is definitely not a good time to start a brand right now. But yeah, for me, if you're gonna make a long run play at it, and if you really believe in it, in what you're gonna say, go for it like wholeheartedly and always learn. Yeah, that's it.
So who are these brands that are makalat? So
Name them.
Names na.
Name drop.
No,
Um,
see.
yeah,
All
is there
right.
any other questions?
I'm just kidding.
Okay.
are there other questions for Red?
Yes, actually for Red, where is Wednesday heading to both during and after this crisis?
Thursday, from Tuesday to Wednesday to Thursday.
We're gonna keep going.
It's
That's
Monday
right.
off na.
Yeah, we keep Mondays off.
Kalat.
I guess
We're gonna
during
collab.
we have to exist. We will just keep producing stuff that we can. That's easy for us. So how we've grown is some facets of our production is relatively easy that we can do from home. Like ordering shirts, it's already possible online. Getting stuff printed, it's already possible online.
Yeah.
I guess where we want to go is grow this and sort of have a fund. It's all I'm gonna say is about the things we want to do outside of Wednesday, because there's not a lot of space for Wednesday right now, to be honest. We're just trying to survive personally, pero most of our initiatives is for other people. So we're looking to help at pagasa.ph. Check them on Instagram. They're not the weather like government thing. They're people. I don't know the whole Pag-asa meaning, but check them out on IG, pagasa.ph, and they help different communities, like whether it be jeepney drivers who have not had work, or communities like indigenous communities, and also affected communities of like the COVID pandemic. That's what we're trying to lean towards more, like growing the giving.
Good.
And at the same time like planning really in the long run, because again, you guys have been talking about it the whole show, that everything that's happening is unpredictable, you know, and you don't know if the cases are gonna grow from 80K to 100K. Like it's really like a really severe pandemic, and how, you know, the government is handling it is, you know, objectively bad. Like
Bullshit.
It's whack. Subjectively, objectively.
so yeah, I guess I want to, if I can, you know, I want to sort of try and answer those problems. We shouldn't be the ones, you know, it's their responsibility. Because if no one's gonna do it, no one's gonna do it.
Yeah,
You know? So
yeah.
every hand helps, you know. Help
Thank you.
from home. Hashtag help from home.
Esme, are you there?
You know,
Yes,
yeah.
go ahead, Lex.
I just wanted to add, like, you know, Wednesday also is a very good example of putting out editorial content. So brands doing something that doesn't necessarily have to be connected to product. So they came out with this really, really cool, I would say, art house film on their Instagram page. And then from what I know, it's like a collaboration with someone else, right? Like one of the designers you used to work with.
Yeah, so see JP, we did a video. His name is JP Velasco. He's also our roommate. So there's a lot of us here. If you guys see us and you think, oh, they're not social distancing and wearing masks around each other, we all live with each other, and you know, that's kind of the weird situation we're in. And you know, almost like this, that's the sense of community, I guess, in our room, because there's a lot of us here and we kind of depend on each other. Y'all started this, Bryan, like sila Bryan. There's always these here.
Fun fact, we used to live there too.
Yeah.
It's like a TikTok house, but better.
Yeah, but for other stuff.
Yeah, I just
So
wanted
yeah,
to add that.
the cocoon video, sorry, the cocoon video. Yeah, we shot that only on the roof of the condo, and you know, throughout this quarantine, you're limited. You're stuck in the room. You have to stay home, so you have to make do with what you what you have. So you sort of have to be resourceful, and it was just all about trying to picture the roof, or like our kitchen, or like our rooms as different like sets, and redescribing them in a way that we don't really see from a day to day, or transforming that day to day and then just showing it in a way that's, you know, not too
Familiar.
like native of our personal spaces to like to people. It's like sort of a window into like our life, I guess, as well.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, Red. And from the boys, are there anything that you wanna add on to what he said?
I will kind of just like land it. I think at the end of the day, like the reason why fashion is fun is because you're doing it with the community, you know. I don't know anyone who enjoys fashion and just does it, I guess, on their own. Even the other night, I was like super cutting pate to leave the house and like put clothes on. You know, like it was like 11 p.m. I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna dress up. I put on some outfits, just played dress up for a while, and like I'm not gonna do that when I'm alone. But like I was with my wife, and she was just like, "Oh, okay, that looks nice, great, thanks." To the next outfit, but you know, like a community doesn't have to be big. A community can just be you and your homie, you know. And I think that's just the bottom line of it. Like, here's the truth, man. Like, fashion does not have to be super serious. Like, fashion's
real.
Yeah.
That's just the point of it all. Like,
too seriously.
yeah, let's not overthink things. Like, there is space for that. I'm not disregarding the cerebral discussions that have to happen in the fashion. But let's not get caught up with all that all the time. Like, there's space to just have it, you know. So yeah, find your community, find your tribe.
And that's the reason why you're here. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Ed. By the way, we have a lot of questions still. I'm sorry you don't have any time, but if you guys follow Monday Off PH, there's going to be a podcast, hopefully answering all of these. We'll be saving all of these, and watch out for that podcast. Yeah, so follow at Monday Off PH and at PHx Fashion Conference to know more about that. And then now, I think I'll leave the boys here. Thank you so much, Red.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Good day, all.
Knock on Lex's door.
Yeah. Break the fourth wall. Yeah, I think just to close, like, thank you everyone for spending some time with us. We really hope that you had fun, learned a couple of things. But yeah, follow us on Monday Off PH. We're gonna continue the conversation over a podcast with Esme. We're gonna answer some questions.
Bet.
And then we're just gonna continue doing our thing. So, I mean, support us if you work with a brand or you wanna hire us to do some stuff. Hit us up. Our DMs are open. We can do this over coffee or whatever.
Let's build.
But
let's link up.
Let's link. But yeah,
Let's link.
thank you guys for just joining us. And stay safe out there.
And remember, you only live a quarter mile at a time.
I'm out. Bye.
Without you, my friend.
And
Oh shit, I can't end mine. Wait.
thank you guys so much. Damn, that was good.
Alis ka na dyan, partner.
Oh, I should? Okay.
Joke lang.
Turn off your video and turn off your mic. Let's bounce.
All right. Bye, guys.